It's nice to meet a actual comedian. Actual. Because this whole thing, whatever it's become, the way I originally pitched it was it's like Jerry Seinfeld's comedians in cars getting coffee.
Right.
But I don't drive, don't drink coffee, and I'm not a comedian. But I thought, at least we put one of them in.
Yeah, I mean,
cover
you
that.
got a comedian.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But because I'm a bit scared of engaging with comedians because as an artist, and there's quite a lot of artists like me that play on humour or use humour in their work. Is how it's.
I wish I did. I'd be a lot more successful.
Right. I've almost wanted to be a comedian but not dared, and felt slightly safer being an artist.
These are all different sorts of comedy. I mean, I'm a comedian in the sense I do stand-up. You could be an artist comedian. Some of the things I say on stage are not funny to some people, and to some people, they're not funny. It's the way it is. It's all subjective. Art is comedy in the sense that it is subjective.
I mean, how did you get into it then?
I think I'm one of the rare sort of people that was... Everyone I talked to in comedy grew up, I love comedy, it's what I want to do, and I kind of sort of found it by accident. It wasn't something I was into until I did it, and then I went, oh, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, the actual act of doing it.
Yeah, and that's when I started getting more into it and watching and learning, I guess.
You're from Hull, is that right?
Yeah, born and raised on the council estates of Hull. Hull's got a pretty good scene at the moment. A guy from Sheffield was gigging over, and he ended up posting a status afterwards about how Hull's got a sort of nice, close-knit family of comedians. You go to different cities and it can be quite cliquey at times.
Yeah.
Whereas Hull, we're like, you know what, let's all look out for each other and try and help where we can.
Why is that?
I think it's because Hull's an hour away from anywhere decent, at least. And so, if we're gigging away in Manchester, that's a 4-hour round trip for someone. So you're going to bond with each other and close. Some of my best friends I've made through comedy.
I guess what the audience or people don't necessarily ever really see is the social side of it or the interconnectedness of it. Maybe they do. I mean, the thing I've struggled with is jokes. I'm not good at jokes.
I'm not very good with jokes. And the jokes I do write are intentionally bad. I write crappy one-liners if I have to write them.
The humour I realised I really like are the comedians that their sort of act works around the fact they're not funny, and that in a way makes them funny. And so that's where I've hoped that I'm just unfunny, but if I pretend to be not funny, then I might sneak through.
Yeah. Well, I go on stage and the first thing I tell the audience is I have no idea what I'm doing up here. I'm just look, I have no idea what I'm doing up here, and they're like, oh crap, and then I'll hit them with a couple of quick jokes, and they're like, he was just messing.
Oh, right.
He's fine.
There's something quite nice about not knowing what you're doing, though. I mean, I feel like I've had a series of, tried to work in lots of different ways and do stuff, and continually putting myself in a position where I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and hoping that something good comes out of that.
I always think of it as I did a photography GCSE. What I'd do is I'd take a picture and then come up with the idea behind it afterwards. I think that's a bit more exciting. Just pretend you know what you was doing.
Because how much do you think about comedy and what you're doing as an art form?
I try not to think of it as an art form. I try to think of it as a job, but it is an art form. I'd argue anyone's right to say it is an art form. It's as arty as going to the theatre, someone wrote a play, I wrote this 1-hour monologue of jokes. I've seen some comedy shows that have moved me to tears. Some have been just beautiful stories.
Yeah.
Comedy's changed me in the ways that no matter what situation I am in, I'll always be thinking of what's funny about this.
Yeah.
And as a person, sometimes it's good. It gets me through hard times.
Well, you got to laugh, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, that's the saying, isn't it? My auntie recently passed away from cancer, and every time me and her were together, we'd joke about it and stuff, and it'd make people uncomfortable. But at the same time, me and her, I think you needed that. You don't, what are you meant to say to her? I was like, well, we'll make jokes, we'll have fun with it, we'll keep ourselves entertained. So I think I'm always thinking about what's funny. You know what? Bailiffs could be at my door taking all my stuff, and I'd be like, it's a joke in it somewhere. You know what I mean? It's that.
Well, I do the same. I'm always like, oh, there's a work in this.
My friend suffers with depression. He goes on stage and talks about his depression. So, I'm just a bit of him. He's at the edge of his mental breakdown, and he's like, oh yeah, I've got to write this down though.
There's a very fine line, it seems, between that and work, and the need to produce something.
There is a weird amount of depression in comedy. I can't remember which comedian tweeted it, but he went, comedy is often someone really sad on stage trying to pick people happy who aren't as sad as him. And that's often what it is. I do it because I enjoy it, you know what I mean? And why would I stop doing something that makes me happy? And sometimes, fair enough, it makes me sad. But I could have the worst gig in my life, and the only thing more depressing than having that worst gig in my life is then knowing that I've not got any more gigs after that.
When I've like questioned myself as to whether I want to push myself in more of a direction to work in terms of live performance and not necessarily comedy, but you know, that immediacy with the audience, it's like the notion of sort of bombing or it all going totally wrong.
Yeah, I don't know, there's no reason to justify it. I couldn't tell my parents, Mum and Dad, I want to be a comedian, and here's why. I just feel a need to, I don't know.
From what I understand, you're quite instrumental in supporting other comedians or putting events on, or you do the sort of comedy festival as well.
I'm the director of the comedy festival. I have my hand in running gigs and teaching comedy courses. Comedy is at the moment is in oversaturation, and the best of the best will rise to the top. And I don't think I'm the best of the best, but
is that up for you to decide, or?
Well, you know what I mean. I know certain steps I'd have to take, and I don't know if I'm willing to sacrifice the things that would take that.
What would that be?
I mean, you look at the best of the best. They're working all weekends. They're on the road. They've moved to a city away from their family and their friends. You know, this is their full-time thing. There's no other hobbies. Like I've got friends in London that are surviving on £1 a day.
Is that why you're sort of trying to really build things up in Hull?
I don't know if that's my motivation. I just like helping them. So I can teach it. I can run gigs. I can run a festival. I can do other things that will keep me involved in the world of comedy that isn't necessarily going to make me a star, but it will stop me from getting a proper job in a call centre and keep me entertained.
No, yeah, you've done like a lot
in
this short time.
Well, that's it. I mean, I've been quite successful as a comedian in a sense of I've done a lot of things that other comedians haven't done. I've done festivals, I've done ferry work, I've done TV work in like acting and stuff like that. So success is all relative. Like my success, I can look at my friend who started with me and he's not done half the things I've done. And then I can look at someone who started 3 years ago and he's now in big finals in Edinburgh. It's all, I think I struggled with that when I first started.
Well, when you're young, it's always, you've got like all the motivation. You
like,
think it can all happen immediately.
Why am I not further on? And I've not got that worry anymore. You've got to find your own pace. It's not a sort of sprint to the end. It's not a marathon. It's, you know, it's not about times.
I guess you got to enjoy it whilst it's happening as well. Like I would sort of seem, if you were wanting to get into comedy, there's a less obvious route. You don't go to like comedy school. Well, I guess you teach classes and things, but there aren't like big institutions
well, the thing is with comedy, people that do it are the people that have always wanted to do it.
Apart from you.
Yeah, apart from me. So the majority, like, this is their dream. We did an open mic night on Tuesday. I threw out some new material, and the kid come up to me and was like, I've always dreamed to do comedy, but I don't know how. And immediately, all the comedians were like, where are you based? Here's the acts for your info. Here's where you can go. Here's the night.
So it's actually like internally supported.
Yeah, I've never turned up to a gig and there's been like silence amongst comedians. Why pull the ladder up after you? You know what I mean? Keep it ladder down there. Keep it fresh.
That seems quite apt for a lot of the things you've said that you're doing and helping people. And the worry I've been having is working either in art education or thinking about what I do as trying to encourage people to pursue art making in whatever form that might be for them. But then I start to think, like, do they want this life? Like, should I encourage it? Or, I mean, I guess, but it's always their drive that then excites me, but...
You can't force someone, you couldn't go, right, you're going to be an artist. That's what you're going to do. I think if you go and you teach art, you're going to resonate with someone and they'll then pursue it, you know what I mean? I couldn't be like, right, Harry, me, you, we're going to be comedians now. This is what you're going to do. You need that want, you know what I mean? It's like, well, you know what, I'll make this work for me in my own sense. I'm very independent that way. I'm just like, I'll make my own one. I think it was Art Attack that did it for me when I was a kid. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you can try this at home, and I'm like, yes, I will. This is how I'll do it.
The sort of culture thing, right? Whole city of culture, or just culture in generally, is often feels quite misunderstood, or no one quite knows what they mean by it.
It's a weird thing to say because I run in arty circles in sense of performing, but and most people on the council say it's not for them. They're like, no, see culture, load of tosh of that, nothing for me. And it's like, yeah, probably not. Culture in itself in Hull is quite independent because we're an hour away from everywhere, and so we've got to make our own. Like there's great poets in Hull, great bands in Hull. But you go out of Hull, you've not heard of them.
So it is quite insular, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. When I first started, my first 20 gigs, 3 of them were in Hull. The others were in Warrington, Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle.
All over the place.
You know, you travel for it. Whereas because of that, we've all, me and other comedians in Hull, have built up the comedy scene. Acts are doing 20 gigs in Hull.
Just on a local
Yeah. Whereas that would never happen for me. I gig once at one place and I can't gig there again for 6 months.
There always seems to be a difference between when people talk about culture and then being cultured. You know, like there's a lot of people that want to be cultured. For me, culture, or what I would like to think of culture, is on that local level. It's like, what's the culture? Like, what are we all doing? And that's where I think, where you're talking about the fact that people have to just do it themselves and create it. Like, that is culture.
If I looked at my dad's culture of entertainment, his was probably going to a working man's club, seeing a band or an 80s comedian talk about things that he isn't allowed to talk about anymore.
Right.
He's from an area where, in a sense, art was Ponce, you know what I mean? A
lot of it is.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad finally someone said it. Right? You can be as cultured as you want to be, I think, is the option. But who's to say your culture is better than anyone else's?
Yeah.
There's a sort of snobbiness around certain people going, well, he's uncultured. Why? Because he's not into the same things you are.
Yeah.
He's not going to go, oh, let's pop into this art gallery.
I've often felt that I'm not convinced by art, and a lot of people aren't. But when you get sort of inhabited in being an artist, or, you know, being around art all the time, you sort of start to just accept it and go, oh yeah, it's, you know, it is all right, or maybe other people are wrong. But there is a lot that I'm still quite uncomfortable about with it. And I feel like I'm trying to change it from the inside somehow. Don't know how well it's going, probably not very well. For you, what is that perception of art?
I go to art galleries, I'll check things out, and I can point at pictures I like and be like, can I explain why I like it and stuff like that. And to transfer that over stand-up sort of thing, I think there is comedians I do not find funny. Like, there is comedians that I'm just like, this isn't for me. But I think you sort of have to develop an understanding, but it's for someone else.
There's a lot of effort or energy to make people appreciate it or say, you should like this. And then, you know, I can't help but think like...
I don't think you can, though. I think you can't make people appreciate taste. You have to let them find it on their own. I guess art's difficult because art is... I've seen one artist, I've seen them all. And why would I go see something else? I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. It all gets lumped in together.
Yeah, I like interactive art. I like art we can play with, whereas some people are like, well, it's not really art if you're making it yourself. And you're like, oh, no, this is a lot of fun.
No, great.
Some people will watch this and go, video, it's not art, this.
Yeah.
I don't get why this is art.
Well, I sort of don't want people to think it's art.
So you mean you're not going to end this by painting me like one of your French girls?
No. I think sometimes when we're looking at something and we think what we're looking at is art, it can put people off, just that fact.
Yeah.
And so I quite like the idea that someone would look at this and go, oh, and not even think that it's art.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. Cause
I hope so. I mean, like, my hope with this was really, I thought, let's find people to talk to because a lot of the time when an artist is sort of brought into an area to respond to it or make work in it, it's up to them to interpret it or, whatever. Yeah. And I felt like I don't really want to do that, or maybe I don't feel confident enough to do that. And I was like, well, actually, maybe there's people in these places that what they have to say and what they think about it's more interesting.
What you're saying is you're a lazy artist. You got brought in and you was like, oh, we need you to sum up this area, and you went, you know what, someone else will do it, that's fine. Yeah. I'll just sit on the bench and I'll talk to them.
Pretty much, yeah, that is pretty much spot on. Like you said with comedy, you see it and you go, I could do better than that.
Yeah.
And so I just think if I lower it, more people will think they can do better than that.
You are a genius.
Yeah.
You know what? There's a perfect example of this. We were in Amsterdam, and there was myself and 2 other comedians. We went to see this street performer, and he gathered around about 50 people, and we were just going, this guy's not good. He's not a good street performer, right? And he's got this crowd there, and they're there for 20 minutes, and it builds up to this juggling trick. And fair enough, I couldn't do the trick. But as a guy who's seen a lot of street performers, it wasn't a particularly good trick. And he finished it, and was like, well, that was disappointing, right? And then we went up to him at the end and we was talking to him. And he said something that really just clicked, and it changed all our perception of him. He was like, it's not about the trick. He was like, I could have done any trick at the end. I was like, what are you on about? And he's like, they were there for 20 minutes. I entertained them. I made them laugh.
Right.
I kept them there for 20 minutes. It wasn't about the trick.
No.
Right? Yeah, should we get out of here?
Yeah, what are you performing this evening?
We're not. We're script writing this evening. It's a production meeting. Yeah? We're finishing now. Thanks for ruining the leaving shot left day.